What is going on, guys? Money Webby here. We're back with our Week 6 DraftKings picks. I hope you guys had a great Week 5. Most of my plays that are recommended did pretty well, but the huge thing was Devontae Parker going out of the game with an injury in like their first drive. That killed a lot of my lineups. I was all in on Parker. I thought he was going to have a huge week against the Titans secondary, so that really sucked. But most of the other plays did well. We had Dak Prescott going off. Des Bryant had a nice little game. Christian McCaffrey had a nice week. Most of the plays, I honestly can't remember all of the plays at the top of my head, but I think for the most part they did pretty well outside of that Devontae Parker injury. That one sucked. Evan Ingram was disappointing with Odell, Brandon Marshall, and Sterling Shepard all getting hurt, and Evan Ingram still couldn't get a catch. Like, what are you doing out there, bro? That was disappointing, but I don't know. I hope you guys did well in Week 5. Let's move on to Week 6. First off, thank you so much for all the likes in the video last week. It was crazy stuff. We had 300 plus likes, so keep that going, guys. Go and spam the like button again. I love it. It really helps me out, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm not just saying this because like I do these videos for you. I want you guys to have the best success on DraftKings and daily fantasy, whatever you're playing on. So keep that going with the likes, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to get these DraftKings picks every single week. I do waiver wire videos every week as well. I actually didn't do one this week because I went to the Red Sox game yesterday. I saw them lose in a heartbreaking game. They blew it at the end. They were up most of the game until friggin' Chris Sale gave up that home run or whatever. But enough of that. The waiver wire videos will be back next week, 110%. So subscribe if you guys want waiver wire pickups. Also do a betting picks video with my friend every week, and we do these DraftKings picks every single week. So definitely subscribe and follow me on Twitter. If you have any questions for your lineups and waiver wire pickups, just anything at all, I answer everything on Twitter, so you can tweet me there and follow me for my full lineups. I tweeted out 4 lineups last week, and I'll be tweeting out probably another 4 this week. So definitely follow me on Twitter at MoneyWebby. So let's just get into these plays. My favorite plays are quarterbacks, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. I'm feeling great about it. So the first guy I'm looking at, obviously, Tom Brady is always a good play, but his salary is a little bit high compared to everyone else at $8,300. He's at 1,000 more than the next guy in Aaron Rodgers. The first guy I'm going to recommend, though, I feel great about, is going to be Drew Brees going against the Lions defense. Their defense is pretty solid, but Vegas thinks this is going to be a shootout here, the highest over-under on the slate, and this game's in the Dome. Drew Brees, he's coming off a bye week. His arm is nice and fresh. We know he's getting on the older side of his game. He's like 38 years old, I believe, so we know he's not the same quarterback as he used to be in his prime, but a bye week will have Brees feeling great in this matchup, and they just got rid of AP. I think that actually helps their offense out a lot. He was holding them back, not a great scheme fit. So with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara coming out of the backfield, they can open up their passing attack, and they got Willie Snead back most likely this week. He didn't play week 4 because he had an injury, but that bye week should have him ready to go in week 6 against this Lions secondary. And Cam Newton had a huge week last week against the Lions, 355 and 3 touchdowns in that game, and they honestly have worse weapons than the Saints, so I think Brees can get it done here. We know how good he is in the Dome, so I love him in the spot. I'm expecting at least 20 DraftKings points, and you get the savings from the top guy in Tom Brady, so I really like him. And my next guy, a little bit below, is going to be Kirk Cousins at 6,800 against the 49ers. I probably mention this every single week, but the 49ers secondary is very bad, so I think Cousins can take advantage of them in this matchup. Some nice weapons, and that bye week really did Kirk Cousins well, I'm guessing, because he can get more chemistry with Terrell Pryor and Josh Doctson finally healthy, and that would actually allow Jordan Reed to heal up over the bye week as well. So their weapons should be fully healthy and ready to go against this bad secondary. With the 49ers, their pass rush kind of like carries their defense with those guys on the outside of the offensive line, but the Redskins O-line is very good, so that will keep Kirk Cousins upright. They attack this bad secondary, so I love Cousins in the spot. I think he could have a similar week to in week 3 against the Raiders, where he had a friggin' huge game with 29 DraftKings points. I can easily see that same kind of total, so at 6,800, I really like Cousins in the spot. And a little bit cheaper now, we're going to go with Sir Jameis Winston at 6,200. He's going against the Cardinals here. People, like, you might look at the Cardinals defense like they were so good for so long, but they've been very bad recently. Against Carson Wentz last week, Carson went 304 yards and 4 touchdowns against them. Like, Tyrann Mathieu, he does not look like the same guy so far this year. Patrick Peterson, he's still very good, But everyone else outside of Patty P is not good at all. So I love Sir Jameis Winston in the spot to have a big game. I think this game should be close throughout. The Cardinals are allowing 18.75 fantasy points per game. So I think Winston can have another solid outing. He hasn't even been playing that well the last few weeks, but he's gotten over 20 DraftKings points over those last 3 weeks. So with that volume, it's consistently around 40 passing attempts a game. I think he'll hit that total again here. They got Doug Martin back, so the run game should get working again. So I think Winston can easily have a great game here. Hit some bombs to DeSean Jackson like we saw with Nelson Agholor and Torrey Smith last week against his Cardinals defense. So I love Jameis Winston, 6,200. And probably my favorite play of the week, though, is going to be Case Keenum at 5,000, a very cheap option here on the Vikings going against the Packers secondary. We know against the Packers, the way you attack them is through the air. Their run defense is solid, so I think Case Keenum is going to put the team on his back with the options he has on the outside, and Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. Diggs a little bit banged up, but if he's 100%, Keenum is going to have a huge week here. We saw with Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen last year. They both had huge weeks against the same Packers secondary. Diggs went 9 for 182 with a touchdown, and Adam Thielen went 12 for 202 with 2 touchdowns. Both, that was each in just one game against this Green Bay defense. And Keenum, we saw the upside against the Bucs. He went for 31 DraftKings points in that game, and he looked solid when he came in against the Bears as well, with 140 yards and 1 touchdown, only 21 attempts. And actually, he can use his legs a bit too, so he could get some yards on the ground as well. And only 5,000, he can return so much value. Probably my favorite quarterback play of the week, because you can get that savings to pay up at running back and wide receiver, and maybe even tight end if you're trying to pay up there. So I love Case Keenum, and that's really it I have at quarterback. So let's look at running back now. I'm trying to pay up at running back. The studs at the top are all in like great spots here. Le'Veon Bell, obviously a great play, but at 9,600, am I really trying to pay up that much to get Le'Veon when I can go down a bit with guys like Kareem Hunt, Fournette, Melvin Gordon, and Todd Gurley, which I honestly think could have the same exact week as Le'Veon Bell here. So I'm going to go down to those kind of core guys. And the first guy I'm looking at is going to be Kareem Hunt at 8,200. He's playing Le'Veon Bell in this game. So I think he's going to try to prove to the whole world that he is the best running back in the NFL in this matchup. I think he's going to have a huge game. The Steelers' run defense has not been very good. Fournette just went for like 180 rushing yards in the game. I do know that he went for like a 90-yard run at the end of the game. Kind of fluky, but he did solid most of that game, and he got the rushing touchdown against them. So I think Kareem Hunt can do some damage. They got a great run blocking line for the Chiefs to get him going here, and he's had over 100 yards 4 out of his 5 games so far this year. So I see another game where he's going to get over 100 on the ground. The Steelers secondary has been pretty good, so I see a big Kareem Hunt game where I'm getting a lot of touches again. So I love Hunt in this spot against the Steelers to prove the world what he's got to offer. So my next guy I'm looking at is going to be Todd Gurley at 7,700 against the Jags. Everyone in the world was on Le'Veon Bell last week against this Jags defense, because we know they can't stop the run. So I think Gurley can finally take advantage of this Jags defense. The Steelers didn't even get Le'Veon Bell like any touches. He only had like 14 carries. The similar thing happened with Todd Gurley. He didn't get enough touches against that Seahawks defense. They kind of went away from the run game. But in this spot, they're not going to be able to do that because the Jacksonville secondary is so good. So they're going to be shutting down the passing game for the most part, and they're going to make Todd Gurley beat them on the ground. And the Rams is another great run-blocking offensive line. So I love Todd Gurley here. I think he'll get a lot of check-down looks out of the backfield, similar to what he was doing before Week 5. He was just getting a ton of touches just in the receiving game and running the ball out of the backfield. So I see another game where he's getting those like a ton of touches, just like running him into the ground here. So I love Todd Gurley at 7,700. A little bit of a discount too. I kind of expected him to be higher, but he had a bad week last week, kind of burned some people. So I can see people being off him in the spot, and people on Le'Veon Bell last week, like he disappointed a bit against the Jags run defense. So I think Gurley could go a bit underowned, but at 7,700, the salary is very good considering the amount of touches he can get in the spot. So I love Gurley here, and I also love Fournette and Gordon, but I can't like recommend like 4 different guys at the same salary. probably favor Gurley and Hunt at the top, but you can't go wrong with Fournette and Gordon as well. All great options here. So that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to pay up at the top at running back, and then there's a tremendous value at the bottom here where we can go down. I don't really like any of these mid-tier options, so I'm going to go all the way down here to the 4,000 range, and the first guy I'm looking at is going to be Elijah McGuire. This is only considering if Bilal Powell and Matt Forte are out of the game, and even if one of them does play, I think McGuire will probably lead the team in snaps still, and they're going against the Patriots. They're going to be working from behind the whole entire game, and the Patriots defense, they're good on the outside with their cornerback play, but their linebacker play is very suspect. They can't really cover running backs out of the backfield. They've given up over 300 yards just to running backs in the passing game. So I think McGuire could easily get like 3 to 5 catches for some yards out of the backfield. And that's great for PPR, which is on DraftKings. And he'll get some rushes as well. The Pats' run defense has been a little bit worse too. So I think McGuire could get a lot of touches here, get around 100 yards, and maybe even get like a garbage time touchdown. When the Patriots are up, they kind of play soft defense. So I think McGuire can rack up some yards and maybe get a touchdown here in the spot. We saw the talent he has against the Jaguars when he went for 21 DraftKings points. So I love McGuire at 4,600, a great salary saver. And then for two other guys on the Saints, I mentioned before how Adrian Peterson was traded to the Cardinals. With that trade, that really frees snaps up for Kamara and Ingram here. And Kamara is at 45 and Ingram's at 44. I think Ingram is the more upside play here because he can get the touchdowns. He has yet to get a touchdown this year. But in this spot, I think the Saints are going to move the ball very well, and I think Ingram can easily get into the end zone. I'm expecting his first touchdown of the year to come in this spot. He's been involved in the passing game as well, and with AP out of the fold, he should be on line for maybe a few more carries here. He had 14 carries in both of the last 2 weeks. I expect at least 15 touches in this spot, and at 4,400, I can't complain about 15-plus touches for only 4,400. That's way too good of a price. So I love Mark Ingram. And Alvin Kamara, he's a great play as well. We saw him get 10 catches last week against Miami over there in London. I can easily see him getting 5-plus catches. So at 4,500, he's another great salary saver. So those are two other guys I'm really looking at. And lastly, at 4,100, Jerick McKinnon. I mentioned him earlier. He looked freaking phenomenal in that game against the Bears. He went 16 for 95 with a score running the ball, and he also got 6 catches for 51 yards, good for 26 DraftKings points. He looks like he has taken over this lead job for the Vikings, and I think he can get a lot of work out of the backfield against Green Bay in this spot. So I really like Jerick McKinnon at 4,100, another great salary saver. So those are the guys I'm really looking at running back. You can go and pay up for one of those studs. Honestly, you could get 2 studs and put like a cheap running back at your flex spot. So that is what I'm thinking at running back right now. I'm not really trying to attack this mid-tier. I'm trying to go studs and then those cheap guys at the bottom with McKinnon. You got Ingram, Kamara, just some great options here. Marshawn Lynch maybe at 5,000 against the Chargers. Putrid run game, but they're not even giving him many touches. So those are the guys I'm really looking at. Ingram, you got maybe Theo Riddick against the Saints in a high-scoring game. So there's a lot of great options at the bottom, and then you got the studs at the top, which I love. So with that said, let's move on to wide receiver here. The first guy I'm going to go with is going to be Chris Hogan here. But a quick note, I was researching this. You know, you got Xavier Rhodes on the outside against Green Bay, and you got Jordy Nelson and Davante Adams. If Jordy Nelson and Davante Adams both go, I'm not sure as of right now who Xavier Rhodes is going to match up on. Last year, they had Xavier Rhodes supposedly supposed to match up on Jordy Nelson, but I guess it was a miscommunication in the secondary, and he actually matched up against Davante Adams, and Jordy Nelson went 9 for 154 with 2 touchdowns in that game, so it's kind of a headache right now. I would look for some reports towards the end of the week, like seeing if Xavier Rhodes is going to be on Jordy or Davante Adams. Whoever he is not on is going to have a huge week. So Jordy Nelson, I'm honestly hoping he's on Jordy Nelson because Davante Adams is the cheaper of the two. And I would love to see Davante Adams at his price tag on a very easy matchup against Trey Waynes. Davante Adams is currently at 5,700. So he could have a huge week if Xavier Rhodes is going against Jordy Nelson. Be on the lookout for that if there's any reports on seeing who he's going to match up with. But, so yeah, keep that in mind, guys. The first guy, though, like I was saying, is going to be Chris Hogan. This guy's been a monster in the red zone. 5 touchdowns over his last few weeks. And I think he'll get in the end zone again here against this Jets secondary. They've had some great safety play with the rookie Jamal Adams from LSU. He was a top pick for the Jets. He's looked great. So their safety play is very solid. So I think that could limit Brandon Cooks in the spot. And I think Chris Hogan could get the benefit of that and have a huge week in the middle of the field. At only $7,000, it's not a bad price considering how safe and solid he's been with over 21 and 2 out of the past 4. And he had 17 and 18 as well. So he's been a very consistent option at $7,000. Not a bad price. So I really like him, but probably my favorite play of the week is going to be Pierre Garcon at 6,300 going against the Redskins. I think it'll be pretty popular because you got the narrative of the revenge game here against the Redskins, and also Josh Norman is out of this game. So I think Pierre Garcon could have another great week. He's had some tough matchups to start off the year. Like if you look at his matchups, he faced the Seahawks and he had a bad game, only 3 for 26. And then he faced Patrick Peterson last week, or 2 weeks ago. He went 4 for 36, only 7 DK points. So when he's had soft matchups against the Colts, 8 for 94, against the Rams, 7 for 142, this is going to be another soft matchup with Norman out of the fold. So I think Garcon is going to get over 100 yards in their revenge match against his old team and the Redskins. And only 6,300, it's a great price. He's a good PPR option considering how much he's looked at in the offense with over like 10 targets in 2 out of the last 3 games. So I love Garcon in this spot here. My favorite wide receiver of the week. So you got to throw him in your lineups. And another guy is going to be Adam Thielen. This is another one to track during the week. With Stephon Diggs a little bit banged up, I think Adam Thielen could have a huge game. But if they say he's 100%, I wouldn't be as high in Thielen, but I still think he'll have a huge game. Even if Diggs is in the fold, I think he'll be less than 100%. So I think Adam Thielen will get targeted again here. He's had 8 targets in his last 3 games. And Adam Thielen and Case Keenum, they seem to have that chemistry working in their favor. So against his bad secondary in Green Bay, Adam Thielen could have a huge week. At only $6,000, the price tag is very good. So I love Adam Thielen. And for some cheaper options, another guy around the same price, it's going to be DeSean Jackson. Another guy kind of to track with those injuries. There's been some guys banged up all around that I really like. But DeSean Jackson, I think he'll be good to go. He has a wrist injury and they played on Thursday night. So that should have gave him enough time to really get healthy for this game. And I mentioned before, Nelson Aguilar had like a 60-yard touchdown against this Cardinals defense. And Torrey Smith had another long touchdown, 50-plus yards, I believe. So I think DeSean, one of the fastest guys in the NFL, can break free. With Patrick Peterson being on Mike Evans, I think DeSean will be able to catch a bomb. And even if he doesn't, I think he'll still be able to catch some like 20-plus yard routes against their second cornerback, which isn't very good. So at 5,800, he's a ton of upside. We saw his speed work last week against the Patriots, where he went 5 for 106 with 18 DraftKings points. And honestly, Winston missed him, another one where he was open like 30-plus yards on the field. So I love DeSean here at 5,800, a good pairing with Jameis Winston. So another good option there. And for some cheaper guys, Cooper Kupp, I mentioned him last week. He honestly should have had a touchdown at the end of the game. He had a solid game. He was at like 4,600 last week against the Seahawks because of that slot cornerback play for the Seahawks isn't as good as their outside corners. And that's the same thing here with the Jaguars. They got A.J. Boye and Jalen Ramsey on the outside. So considering that, the slot cornerback isn't nearly as good. It's Colvin on the inside. So I think Coop could get some more Cup or whatever, my bad. He can get a lot of targets here. He got 8 last week. I see around 8 again, and he should have more success with those targets against the Jags. So I really like him. Watkins will be locked down on the outside. Robert Woods won't have nearly as good a week. I think Cup is the guy to roster this week. And one more guy, a nice GPP flyer, considering how bad their second cornerback has been this year. This guy, he hasn't done nearly anything this year either. He was sought after in the drafts for year-long. MARTAVIS Bryant going against Kansas City. Like I said, their second cornerback is not good at all. It's Terrence Mitchell, and he's actually gave up over 400 yards to wide receivers this year. And with Marcus Peters most likely trying to shadow Antonio Brown, I think MARTAVIS Bryant's going to have a very easy matchup. If Big Ben can just hit him down the field, he should be getting open a lot in the spot. We saw him get open once against the Vikes, where he caught a 51-yard touchdown. So he has it upside every single week. For GPP, then, I'd really like to throw in MARTAVIS Bryant. If Big Ben can just hit him on a one pass, we know the talent's there. He had huge games before. Big Ben kind of hit a friggin' cliff, and then he just sucks this year for whatever reason, just too old. MARTAVIS Bryant, even with Big Ben's struggles, I think he's a great play in GPP with that bad second cornerback. So I really like him. We saw Will Fuller catch a ball against Mitchell last week, and we saw them just have big gains at the end of that game with Watson and the friggin' garbage time. So MARTAVIS Bryant, a solid little GPP flyer at only 4,700. I really like him. So that's really it at wide receiver. You got to keep track of all those injuries with Diggs, to keep the track on Xavier Rhodes, see who he's matching up against, Jordy or Davante Adams. So those are the best options for me. So let's look at tight end now. Similar to every single week, you got Gronk and Travis Kelce at the top. Gronk at 6,800. It's looking like he'll play. And Travis Kelce, he's currently in the concussion protocol, so keep a track on him. But at 6,100, I really like Kelce, and I think Gronk is worth it as well at 6,800, considering their upside compared to every single other tight end. So another two guys to keep a lookout on throughout the week. But for some cheaper guys, the first one I'm looking at is going to be Ryan Griffin. At 4,000 going against the Browns. They've been very bad against tight ends this year. They're giving up 12.5 fantasy points per game. And Ryan Griffin, he hasn't really done anything over the last two games, but those against some harder matchups that are against tight ends. So I think Griffin could have a bounce back game here, get some more looks from DeSean Watson. I think he'll go under-owned after those two bad weeks. And at 4,000, his price is a little bit high, but the matchup's so good. I think he's worth throwing in some lineups. I think he can get a touchdown in the red zone and get some intermediate work with Watson in this bad safety play for the Texans. So I really like Ryan Griffin here. And another guy I'm looking at is a guy that's been in the red zone or been in the end zone like every single week so far. At 3,900, Cameron Brate. Going against the Cardinals, like look at his game logs, touchdown in the last 3 games, over 10 DK points. With tight ends, you really want to target guys that get into the end zone because that kind of boosts them to the top of the tight end list, with tight end just being a wasteland of people. So Cameron Brate against this Cardinals defense, I mentioned before, Patrick Peterson will be containing Mike Evans, so I think Cameron Brate can get some more licks with that considered, and then he's just been so targeted in the red zone. He can get some more looks there and get another touchdown here at 3,900. Some tremendous upside, so I really like Brate. And for another kind of cheap flyer here, he showed off his tremendous talent. I love this guy coming out of college. David NJOKU at 3,000 going against the Texans. Another guy that's kind of been a red zone target for this team. He has 3 touchdowns in his last 4 games and some decent games considering he has only 2 or 3 catches every single game. He had a nasty one-handed catch last week. So people are going to be, the Browns is going to be watching that on film and be like, damn, we got to give this guy the ball more. We have no wide receivers. So I think NJOKU can get some more targets, maybe 6 targets in this game. And Houston isn't that great at the safety position, so I really like David NJOKU here. I love NJOKU and Ryan Griffin on both sides of the ball at tight end, and we know that talent's there. So, and they'll be working from behind most of this game, so maybe he'll get some more targets with them being so banged up at wide receiver, with Kenny Britt out last week and Corey Coleman out for a few more weeks. So those are the guys I'm really looking at tight end. NJOKU is a great cheap guy to throw in your lineups, and then you got Cameron Brate, Ryan Griffin, and then if you want to go up to the top, if Kelce and Gronk are both playing, I really like them if you have the money to go pay up for them, considering their upside is huge and they can outproduce the other tight ends by a lot. So that is what I'm thinking, guys. At every single position, you got your quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and pound that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to get these DraftKings pick videos every single week. I wish you guys the best of luck, and go ahead and follow me on Twitter at MoneyWebby if you haven't already to get those lineups and answer any single question you may have for your DraftKings lineups, your season-long lineups, just any single question. Maybe what I'm eating for dinner, you can ask me that. I'll give you an update on my life. Any single question, just go ahead and tweet me there. So I wish you guys the best of luck, like I said. Hopefully we take down some GPPs, maybe win $1 million like that guy in Roto Grinders last week. But I'm feeling great, guys. So we'll see you back here next week after a huge week. See you later.